"We have to do it," she said. "I don't know," he replied. "Come on," she insisted. "It'll be fun." "It's just a library." She fixed him with a withering gaze. "The library that's only open in the daytime." "So?" "So, we've been going out for 3 months, and you still haven't made any effort to meet any of my friends. You're too busy looking at the stars, watching TV, or reading your books. So, we can go look at some books for once. For me. If you love me, you'll do this one thing for me." He sighed and kicked a pebble into the gutter. He knew he was beaten. She wasn't the most attractive girl he'd ever met, but she was certainly the most interesting. And he loved her with all of his heart. And if making her happy meant traipsing around an old musty library at night while getting eaten alive by mosquitoes, then so be it. The librarian was a middle-aged woman, and she radiated disapproval as soon as they walked in through the door. Her lips compressed into a thin line, and her eyes narrowed as she forced a smile onto her face and said, "Good evening, young people. How may I help you?" "We just want to look at some books," she said brightly. "Are there any areas you would recommend?" The librarian stared at her in disbelief for a second. Then her eyes flicked to him, and she looked even more shocked. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water before she finally found her voice again. "Well, the children's section is over there." She pointed to a room on the left. "And the reference section is up on the 2nd floor." She pointed to a staircase. The teenagers thanked her and headed off to the children's section. It was a small, well-lit room full of colourful books for small children. They spent a couple of minutes laughing at the funny titles and reading out the cute rhymes before they got bored and left. Upstairs was even more disappointing. All of the books were dry, boring non-fiction about obscure subjects, all written in tedious prose by people who probably had never been happy in their lives. By now, they were bored out of their minds. They'd spent half an hour in this stupid library, and they hadn't even found a single book that was worth reading. "Let's leave," she said at last. "Wait," he said urgently. "I have to go to the bathroom first." He rushed off to the bathroom and locked the door behind him. Then he stood on the toilet seat and pushed open the window as far as it would go. As he had suspected, there was a ledge outside that he could stand on without falling off. He took a deep breath and climbed out of the window and onto the ledge, then slowly made his way across to another window that opened into a small room with walls lined with books from floor to ceiling. He pushed open this window as well and climbed through into the room beyond. It was only when he landed inside that he realized that he had no way of getting back out again. He tried opening one of the windows, but it was too high up for him to reach, even standing on tiptoes on top of a pile of books that looked like they were about to fall apart at any moment. And there was nothing else in the room that he could use to help him reach the window. He felt like an idiot. Stuck in a library, and he couldn't even find a single book that was worth reading. He began to panic. He didn't have his phone with him, having left it with his girlfriend, and shouting seemed fruitless given how muffled the room was. Desperate, he began to examine the books surrounding him, hoping to find something sturdy enough to give him a boost. To his surprise, the books were incredibly old and seemed to be written in languages he'd never seen before. Among them, one particularly large tome, bound in dark leather and stamped with ornate gold designs, caught his eye. Pulling it from the shelf, he noticed its title, Portalum Bibliothecae. Intrigued, he flipped the book open. Inside were beautifully hand-drawn illustrations of various doorways and passages. Skimming the pages, he found a chapter titled Escape Routes for the Trapped Scholar. As ridiculous as it sounded, it was as if the book was made precisely for his situation. Doubtfully, he followed the instructions, which described a ritual involving reciting a chant and tapping the book's cover 3 times. He felt silly doing it, but figured he had nothing to lose. Suddenly, the room began to vibrate, and a portal shimmered into existence before him. Staring into its swirling vortex, he saw an image of the library's main floor. Taking a deep breath, he stepped in and was immediately whisked away. The next thing he knew, he was standing near the reference section, the book still clutched in his hand. Stunned, he quickly placed the tome back on the nearest shelf, afraid someone might see him with it. As he descended the stairs, his girlfriend approached him, relief evident in her eyes. "Where did you go?" she asked, a hint of frustration in her voice. "I was worried when I couldn't find you." He paused for a moment, debating whether to share his incredible experience with her or to brush it off as a simple misadventure. Instead, he said, "Got a bit lost, but I found my way back. Ready to go?" She looked at him quizzically, sensing there was more to the story. "All right," she replied, linking her arm with his. "But you owe me a full account on our way home." Outside, as they walked under the moonlit sky, he recounted his adventure with the mysterious book, the portal, and the feeling of being trapped in a room full of enigmas. She listened intently, eyes wide with amazement. As they reached her doorstep, she turned to him and said, "Maybe there's more to the library than meets the eye." He chuckled, "And maybe there's more to us than just stargazing and TV watching." She smiled and nodded in agreement. The library, it seemed, had brought them closer than ever.